The first rule of being a line cook is that you don't get to have a meltdown. You can burn your hand, slice your finger, get screamed at by a chef with a god complex, and watch an entire pan of seared scallops die because a server forgot to pick them up, all at the same time, and you just say, "Yes, chef," and keep moving. Crying is for the walk-in freezer. Screaming is for your pillow. Breaking down is for after you've clocked out and are sitting in your car, wondering if this is all your life is ever going to be. I was getting really good at that last part. For 6 years, my life had been the relentless, clattering, pressure cooker symphony of a high-end kitchen in downtown Portland. I was 28, and I had the bad back, perpetually burned forearms, and cynical worldview of a man twice my age. I'd wanted to be a chef since I was a kid, mesmerized by the magic of turning simple ingredients into something incredible. I hadn't realized that the magic was just a thin veneer over a whole lot of repetitive, back-breaking labor and emotional abuse. The final straw wasn't dramatic. It was a Saturday night service from hell. I was on the fish station, and every ticket seemed to have a salmon, a halibut, and a black cod on it. I was in the weeds, drowning, and Chef Du Bois was riding me hard. Finally, on a plate I knew was perfect, he pointed a single, accusatory finger. "The skin on this salmon is not crisp, Leo. It is flaccid. It is a failure. You are a failure. Do it again." Something in me didn't break. It just clicked off. I looked at his furious red face, at the perfectly good piece of fish, at the chaos of the line, and I felt nothing. I carefully set down my tongs, untied my apron, and dropped it on the floor. "I'm done, chef," I said, my voice eerily calm. I walked out the back door, past the overflowing dumpsters, and never went back. I spent the next 2 weeks on my couch, binge-watching bad reality TV, and living off takeout, my savings account dwindling at an alarming rate. I was a cook. It was the only thing I knew how to do, the only identity I had. And I hated it. My sister, Clara, finally dragged me out of my apartment. "You need a change of scenery," she said, shoving a duffel bag into my hands. "You're going to the coast. Uncle Jerry said you can use the cabin for a few months. No rent. Just go breathe air that doesn't smell like grease." The cabin was in a tiny blink-and-you'll-miss-it town on the Oregon coast. It was more of a shack, really, a drafty wood-paneled box that smelled like old pine and damp salt. But it was quiet. The only sounds were the roar of the ocean a quarter-mile away and the cry of gulls. For the first week, I did nothing but sleep and walk on the beach, letting the cold, salty wind scour the city from my soul. The town had one grocery store, one gas station, and one diner. The Salty Dog. It was the kind of place that probably hadn't changed its menu since the 1980s. One morning, out of sheer desperation for a cup of coffee that I didn't have to make myself, I went in. The place was empty except for a man behind the counter, wrestling with an ancient-looking espresso machine that was hissing like an angry cat. He was tall and lean, with a mess of sandy blonde hair that fell into his eyes and a friendly, lived-in face. He wore a faded flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms dusted with flour. "Give me a minute," he grunted, whacking the side of the machine with the heel of his hand. "This old girl has a personality, and today she's in a mood." He finally got it to sputter out something resembling a shot of espresso. He looked at me and grinned, a crinkle of laugh lines appearing around his eyes. "Welcome to the Thunderdome. What can I get you?" "Just coffee," I said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. "Coming right up." He poured me a mug of black coffee. It was surprisingly good. "You're new? Renting the old Miller cabin?" In a town this small, of course he knew. "Yeah, Leo," I said. "Mark." He wiped his hands on his apron. "So you hiding from the law, or just a bad breakup?" I laughed, a rusty and used sound. "Something like that. Burned out cook." His eyes lit up with recognition. "Ah, a fellow masochist. I get it." He gestured around the small, dated kitchen visible behind the counter. This was my dad's place. I inherited it, along with his bad knees and his love for terrible puns. I spent the next few hours at that counter. Mark was easy to talk to. He told me about growing up in the town, about his dream of surfing in Costa Rica, about the regulars who would start trickling in for lunch. He never asked me about my old job. He just created a space where I didn't have to be that guy anymore. I started going to the Salty Dog every morning. It became my routine. I'd get my coffee, and Mark and I would talk until the lunch rush started. I found myself looking forward to it, to his easy smile and the low-key, no-pressure way he moved through the world. It was the complete opposite of the frantic, high-stakes ballet of my old life. One morning, Mark was in a panic. My dishwasher, Betty, her car broke down. She's not going to make it in for the lunch shift, and it's Friday. I'm screwed. I looked at the small dish pit in the back. It was a single, ancient machine and a 3-compartment sink. I'd worked stations more complicated than that in my sleep. I can do it, I said. Mark stared at me. What? No. You're on vacation from kitchens, remember? It's just dishes, I shrugged. And you're in a jam. Pay me in cheeseburgers. He hesitated, then a slow grin spread across his face. You're a lifesaver, man. For real. The lunch rush was a controlled chaos I recognized, but the energy was different. There were no screamed orders, no thrown pans. Mark was a one-man show, flipping burgers, taking orders, and cracking jokes with the fishermen who came in for their daily chowder. He moved with an unhurried efficiency that was mesmerizing to watch. I washed dishes. It was mindless, repetitive work, and it was glorious. My hands were in hot, soapy water. The clatter of plates was a familiar rhythm, and for the first time in a long time, there was zero pressure. I was just helping out. When the rush died down, Mark leaned against the counter, wiping sweat from his forehead. I owe you big time, he said. He made me the best cheeseburger I'd ever had, the patty perfectly cooked, the bun toasted just right. We sat at the counter, eating in a comfortable silence. You're good in a kitchen, he said finally. You've got the rhythm. Yeah, well, 6 years on the line will do that to you, I said, a bitter edge to my voice. He was quiet for a moment. You know, he said, choosing his words carefully, not all kitchens have to be that way. My dad used to say that food tastes better when it's made with a good heart. I just grunted, but his words stuck with me. Betty's car ended up needing a new transmission. She was out for at least a week. I kept helping Mark out, washing dishes, and then slowly doing a little prep work. Slicing onions. Peeling potatoes. It felt good to have a knife in my hand again, to feel the familiar weight of it, but without the crushing anxiety. One afternoon, Mark was trying to perfect a new clam chowder recipe. His version was good, but it was missing something. Let me try, I said, almost without thinking. He handed me the spoon. I tasted it. It needed a little more acid, a little more depth. You got any white wine? A bay leaf? Some time. He raised an eyebrow but got me what I asked for. I added a splash of wine, some herbs, a pinch of smoked paprika I found in the back of the spice rack. I let it simmer for another 20 minutes. When I gave him the spoon back, his eyes went wide. Holy crap, Leo. That's incredible. It's what I do, I mumbled, feeling a blush creep up my neck. He looked at me, a serious expression on his face. No, man. What you do is magic. The next day, he came to me with an offer. Look, I know you're trying to get away from this life, but I'm a burger and fries guy. You're a chef. This place could be so much more. What if we did this together? We could change the menu, add some specials. We'd be partners. I froze. Part of me was screaming, no, run, it's a trap. But another part, a part one thought had died, felt a flicker of excitement. A kitchen without the ego. A menu I could help create. Working alongside Mark, whose calm presence was like a balm on my frayed nerves. I don't know, Mark. Just think about it, he said. No pressure. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked down to the beach, the waves crashing on the shore in a relentless rhythm. For 6 years, I had let someone else's definition of success dictate my life. I'd chased a Michelin star I didn't even want, sacrificing my mental health for a perfection that could never be sustained. Mark wasn't offering me that. He was offering me a small, simple kitchen and the freedom to just cook. I said yes. We started slow. We kept the diner classics but added a Friday night special. The first one was my black cod, pan-seared with a simple lemon caper sauce. I was terrified, but the dish sold out in an hour. People who had been eating Mark's fried fish for 20 years were coming up to the pass, telling me it was the best thing they'd ever tasted. Mark was my buffer. He handled the front of house, the orders, the people, leaving me free to focus on the food. He never once questioned my judgment. He trusted me completely. Our partnership worked seamlessly. The diner, once just a local pit stop, started to get a quiet buzz. People from neighboring towns started driving over for our specials. Our lives outside the kitchen started to merge too. We'd close up shop and go for a beer, or walk on the beach at sunset. I learned that his calm exterior hid a sharp, observant intelligence. He learned that beneath my cynical armor, I was just a guy who really loved food. One night, after a particularly busy service, We were sitting on the steps behind the diner, exhausted but happy. The air was cool and smelled of salt and rain. "We make a good team," Mark said, nudging my shoulder with his. "Yeah, we do," I said, my heart doing a funny little flip. I had been so focused on rediscovering my love for cooking that I hadn't let myself acknowledge the other thing that was growing in the quiet spaces of our partnership. He turned to look at me, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Leo," he said, his voice a little rough. It's not just about the food for me." My breath hitched. "Yeah," I whispered. "Me neither." He leaned in, and his kiss was just like him, calm, sure, and with no pretense. It wasn't a desperate, movie-style kiss. It was a confirmation, an anchor. It felt like coming home. We didn't change overnight. Our lives were still about the long hours, the rhythm of the prep lists and the dinner rushes. But now it was our rhythm. We were building something together, for us. I was still a cook, but I was no longer just a pair of hands executing someone else's vision. My heart was back in the food, because the man I was falling in love with had shown me it was safe to put it there. One day, I might even be a chef again. But this time, it would be on my own terms.